From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Black and Gold Review Show, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers, home of the best-selling truck 41 years straight, and the 2018 Nissan Titan, backed by America's best limited truck warranty.
It's a Monday, and the Black and Gold Review Show is hot fire today, and so are the gentlemen beside me. Saints Hall of Famer Deuce McAllister, Mr. West Bank himself, Sean Michael Vazan. We've got a football team that seems to be able to win some games now without Drew Brees having to go off.
That's always a good thing, you know. Anytime that you can win a football game without Drew having to be outstanding is very, very good. That shows that you have other pieces to this team, and that's something that they're going to have to continue to do at some point throughout the season.
Saints are 3-1, right where they need to be. I'm a big believer in that quarter turn. History has shown under Sean Payton, if they're 3-1 or better at that quarter turn, it usually leads to a good season.
I think a lot of people thought they'd be 3-1, but they thought maybe the Atlanta game would be the one where they faltered. They played some good football. Get you right to the headlines of this week. First up, complimentary football. It took everyone contributing in this game. Run game, pass game, defense playing well to get a win in New York.
It was interesting to see how they were able to produce the running game as far as yardage is concerned as well. When you look at it from the defensive side of the ball, I thought that a couple players, Cam Jordan, he was getting triple teamed a lot of times. You look at how well some of the secondary guys played. Now look, they still had some mistakes, and that's going to happen. But at the end of the day, you're proud and pleased of how they were able to come away with the W.
Offense, they eventually got into the end zone. Defense, they forced 2 takeaways. Special teams, they were able to get 4 field goals and a Taysom Hill fake punt. I think all in all, each phase of the game complemented each other, and that's why you got the result that you got.
And I think when you look at this offense as a whole, they didn't get the ball to Michael Thomas to about 4 minutes to go in the second quarter. That tells you how prepared this offense is now. They're not so reliant on 1 or 2 guys, that they have other pieces that can kind of pick up the slack. Josh Hill had a good game as well.
Well, you knew one thing, they were not going to force the football to him, and so it was really just taking what they were being given by the Giants defense. Now, they could have really went after Mike as far as setting him up and getting him more involved, but they wanted the other guys to at least have the opportunity to try to step up.
Headline number 2, secondary secured. At least for this week, we got better play out of the secondary. And listen, they're not going to be world beaters back there, but you wanted to see some progress from the Atlanta game. I think you saw that from 2 guys, Crawley and P.J. Williams.
No doubt about that. I saw 2 catches over 20 yards, and I said it last week, just limited to 1 or 2, not 5 or 6 20-plus yards. Excuse me, there were 3 plays of 20-plus yards, 2 catches of 20-plus yards. So I think from a secondary standpoint, they played much better. Marshawn Lattimore, I think the first 2 weeks were a bit fluky. I think we're starting to see him kind of develop into the player he was last year. Not elite yet, but he's getting there.
Maybe a wake-up call for Marshawn.
I think it was a wake-up call, but also for him to be able to get his legs up under him. I mean, he talked about maybe being a little tired from training camp and being able to go right into a season. And look, he was tested early on. You talk about some of the receivers that he was matched up against, and you know, if this defense can kind of find itself and continue to make it hard on any quarterback, then this team can really, really make some noise.
Let's get to headline number 3, because early on it was the leg of Lutz. They kept this team in 4 field goals, kept the team in the game. They needed every one of those kicks early on.
They needed every one of them, and for Lutz, he'll tell you, I made 6 field goals. I didn't make 4 of them, and which is true. And yes, it was odd how they ended the quarter and they still allowed them to kick the field goal. That was something almost like icing them in a sense. And so for him, if he can be consistent and give them that points or those points when they need them, even those at times you need touchdowns, that's only going to help this team with confidence, but also belief in him.
Contrast that performance yesterday with the first time he was in New York a few years ago when he had that blocked field goal, return for a touchdown.
Yes.
Really changed that entire game. A game the Saints should have won back then in 2016. Will Lutz has really played well. He's 4 for 4 yesterday, 10 of 11 on the season. He just looks like a totally different player, like I said, from that last time he was here, there until now. So the leg of Lutz has been steady, and I think the Saints have needed him, and he's come through.
He's been very good so far this season. Headline number 4, third down success. At one point, they were 1 of 8, and then the second half, the light went on. They converted 4 third down conversions and that long drive for the touchdown. Something happened. The light kind of went on for this team in the second half.
It's not always what you do, it's when you do it. Yep. And I think to really, because they were struggling on third down, but to have 4 of 4 on that scoring drive, a drive that I believe the score was cut to 19-10 at that point, so the issue was definitely still in doubt. So to come up with those plays when they needed them most on the road in that environment, I think it speaks well to kind of the situational and complementary football aspect we were talking about earlier. So they needed the play, they made it, and third down efficiency is always a major thing with Sean Payton.
You need your playmakers to be able to step up and make plays for you, and I thought that's what they really did, where the guys are locking in more than that second half. I mean, because they've been outstanding in the fourth quarter, but where the guys are locking in that second half and just really focusing and honing in on what they have to do. You want that over a complete game. They're still searching for that perfect game as far as being complete, but I thought the success was really good, particularly in the second half.
Let's get you to headline number 5. Stopping the run. The Saints allowed the Giants 65 yards on the game. We knew that Saquon Barkley was the best running back they faced up to this point. I think they passed the test. Only 44 yards for him.
They definitely passed the test, and I thought one thing that you were going to have to do was rally the football. He is a guy that has, they call it his thighs, legs of steel
yes,
almost. And I mean, so he was able to break a few tackles, but when they rallied to the football, they were able to bring him down. And so for him, I thought Davenport had an outstanding run stop against him when it was one-on-one. And so for him, you have to be able to rally the football. And so that front seven has played really, really, really well.
I was waiting until this game to kind of give a true opinion of the Saints' run defense because I was a little skeptical in the first 3 weeks given who they were playing against. But to be able to bottle up Saquon Barkley like they did, to play as strong against the run as they did, I'm a believer now in the Saints' run defense. And I think if they lean on this, the issues in the back end will eventually come around. So I think stopping the run at the point of attack is certainly a good way to start. Now, they're not a complete defense yet, but I do think this is a good place to start where this defense is concerned.
How much do you guys think the defensive players themselves are talking about, this is our first true test? We've given up 3 yards per carry in those first 3 games, but they've been against okay running backs. Maybe a conversation amongst themselves as players that this is our first true test, see what we can do?
No, I don't think that was the case.
Okay.
I think it was more of we're in New York, and so let me shine in New York. Not necessarily because you're playing Barkley and you're going to give him his status. Say, look, yes, he was a top 5 pick as far as a player, but they don't. I think that they respected the other players. Tevin Coleman is a really good running back as well. I think they respected those other players as well, and just knowing that they had the opportunity to shine here playing Barkley in New York.
I just think they played well. I mean, I really do. I think they game planned him well. They played him well. They were prepared for what he could do. He's lightning in a bottle. He's a very explosive player, and they were able to keep that under control. So I think ultimately it was a good day for the run defense.
I agree. All right, coming up, Alvin Kamara leads the league in rushing touchdowns. Sean will break down the film on the next level of his running evolution. And the evolution of Taysom Hill has you, the viewer, wondering, what can't he do? I wonder that as well. We'll answer your questions next.
Watching the Black and Gold Review Show, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the 2018 Nissan Titan.
All right, welcome back in. Time now for some film study, and we have confirmed that Alvin Kamara is pretty good.
I think that's a pretty safe bet there, Juan. I wasn't sitting next to Deuce McAllister when Alvin Kamara scored his 49-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter, but I'm sure that was the kind of play that made he and his former offensive lineman partner smile from the booth, because for all the talk of explosive players, exotic formations, new age concepts, the game clincher against the Giants came from the most traditional formation in football and all came down to some basic fundamentals. The Saints lined up in their 21 personnel or base package of 2 receivers, Michael Thomas and Traquan Smith, 1 tight end, Josh Hill, fullback Zach Line, and tailback Alvin Kamara. The Giants countered with 8 in the box. They're expecting run all the way. Smith then goes in motion from left to right. On the snap, the initial hole at the line of scrimmage was created by right tackle Ryan Ramczyk, who blocked down on defensive tackle B.J. Hill, and Zach Line, who blocks the outside linebacker Kareem Martin. This creates a nice lane for Kamara to run through. But big runs don't happen without a strong block at the next level. That came courtesy of Hill, who effectively shielded Giants linebacker B.J. Goodson away from where Kamara was running. But the big difference between a good running back and a great one is what they do against the unblocked defender. In this case, it was Giants DB Curtis Riley, who pursues Kamara hard. But Kamara is able to use Riley's speed against him and brushes him off as he attempts to make the tackle. Then it's off to the races, where he outruns the rest of the defense to the end zone. Game over. Should also point out that rookie Traquan Smith had a good block on that edge as well on that play. That play cemented the drive where it could have possibly gotten away from the Saints, but they slammed the door shut. And Deuce, I know there's a name for that play. I know you knew it right away. What is it?
36 power.
36 power.
And one of my favorite plays to be able to see run. I think that they've run it a lot with Mark and not a lot with Alvin. I mean, so for him to be able to run that type of play, it changes what defenses and how defenses can play him, because now that's downhill. And so if he's coming downhill, that's going to make it tougher for defenses to be able to stop.
Is that a play that's normally reserved more for Mark Ingram?
No, they can run it. I mean, because they ran it earlier in the game. They ran it like maybe 2 times earlier in the game, but they can run it with other guys as well.
All right.
I just think Kamara is able to do it all, any personnel package. So I just think he's a more complete back than people realize.
Peyton called him special in yesterday's press conference. He is dead on with that. Let's get you right to some questions now, because that's what we do on this show. Submit it on the Final Play app using the Final Word feature. Our first question comes from Jim in Metairie. Is there anything Taysom Hill cannot do on the football field? So far, he's showing that he can do a whole lot, which is why Peyton is saying, you know, this guy offers so much to this team. Let's get him in the game.
Jim, this is Taysom Hill's world. We're just trying to enjoy it a little bit. You know, what's interesting is teams are seeing him on tape, but they're still not able to stop him. And this is really an outstanding job on this fake punt. And Taysom he placed the ball perfectly. Hardy had to get told to maybe scoot up a little bit by the referee, which I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but it was something, the boost that the team really needed, the spark that they needed at that time.
Seems to run well. I know he had 1 or 2 read options where he made the wrong read, but he also made a few where he made the right read. That was clearly the right read. Played 15 snaps, gave you some juice on special teams with that block, with that fake punt. Should have had a touchdown pass. Was the one thing Alvin Kamara didn't do in that game. He dropped that ball, but we were debating last week when was his touchdown pass going to come. It almost came on Sunday, but look, he just keep getting more and more confident. They're asking him to do a lot of different things. I spoke to him before the game in my sit-down, and he just said, look, you just got to be prepared. And he's in punt block, punt return, kickoff return, offense. I mean, he could probably line up and play safety at this point. He really could.
Well, there's some fans out there wouldn't mind him trying his hat at a little safety or maybe some cornerback. Let me ask you, Deuce and Sean, is he the most reliable returner the team has right now? Because Sean Payton said yesterday, our return game is in a flux.
Well, I think you have to look at it from the kickoff return. Yes, he's reliable, but when you talk about punt, that's a different animal. Yeah. Punt is a different animal, and so I don't know if he's comfortable catching punts, and I don't know if the team is comfortable catching punts. And I think Sean is probably upset because of the fumble that Brandon Tate had, and then obviously the muff that Ted Ginn Jr. had on the hands team kickoff return as well.
Yeah, those could be disastrous, and the Saints just got, frankly, very lucky on those two. But I like Taysom Hill as a kickoff returner. I'm with Deuce, though. I think Brandon Tate's the right guy for punt returns.
Yeah, not a great start for Tate, although that was one heck of a lucky bounce off the defender. Let's get you to our second question here from Will and Harvey. Is it possible that the running game will not be the same even after Mark Ingram comes back due to losing 2 of the most underrated blocking receivers from last season in Willie Snead and Brandon Coleman? I think that's a pretty good question, but I think they've done a pretty good job this year of blocking for their running backs.
Yeah, I think both of the last 2 games, you went over 140 last week, and I think it was right at 170 this week. So you can block guys on the perimeter. We have receivers that are willing to block on the perimeter. You know, the running game is going to start inside, and I think if the offensive line continues to get the type of push that they've been getting, as well as involving the tight ends and fullbacks, then that run game should continue to only get better.
I'm right there with you. I think the return of Mark Ingram will enhance the run game, and let's be honest, it's really one game where they struggle run the football. That was against Cleveland. Against Tampa Bay, you can kind of throw that out because the game got away from them really quickly. So I think the receivers, while there may not be one as dominant as Snead and Coleman in the blocking game, they're definitely competent in that area, as we saw on the Kamara touchdown. So I think when Ingram comes back, the run game gets even better and maybe kind of resorts back to what they were last year.
I was going to ask you, once Ingram comes back for week number 5, how do they change the style of offense that they're playing right now? Or does it not change at all? They continue, maybe they're pounded even more.
Yeah, I don't think it changes at all. One of the things that you hope happens is now you don't have the usage of much of Alvin Kamara, and so now he can really get going. You can put him and Mark in the game. They've done it before using 2 tailbacks in the game, but you may even see the package expand with Taysom Hill and the 2 tailbacks in the game, and even Drew still being involved. So it can continue to grow. That's fun stuff for those guys, but it's, you know, making sure that you can get positive yards. That's the best thing.
All I got to say is that was a heck of a bounce back for Alvin Kamara, because he played a ton of snaps against Atlanta, and he was absolutely drained after the game. So to bounce back and play, I think it was 84% of the snaps, that was huge.
Let me ask you real quickly, who gets cut now? Is it Gillislee or Washington, the new kid that came in?
They may get an extension from commissioner, may give them a couple days. So I don't know what direction they go in as far as what player is released. But, obviously we know someone will get released.
If you go on performance-wise, though, which one do you think doesn't make the cut? We only had a little bit of tape on the new kid.
I think it's Washington. I mean, just because he can go back to practice squad.
Okay. I think that's the one. Yeah, Washington.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Up next, have the Saints finally figured out their linebacking rotation with Demario Davis playing like the big money free agent he was signed to be? And it's reunion week as Adrian Peterson comes back to town as a rested and rejuvenated running back. We'll talk about that next.
Black and Gold Review, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealer, the best-selling truck 41 years straight. You're watching the Black and Gold Review Show, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the 2018 Nissan Titan.
All right, welcome back in. One of our talking points, seems like all season long, has been about the linebacking rotation and how it seemed a bit confusing with this Saints coaching staff on which guys they wanted to put where and how effective they can be. But we've been kind of seeing things play out over the last couple of weeks. It seems like the linebacker playing time has kind of sorted itself out. Demario Davis, 44 defensive snaps, 71% of the plays. A.J. Klein, 43. Alex Ensign only 33. Craig Robertson finally got a run on the defensive side of the ball as well, playing 20 defensive snaps. Manti Te'o was inactive because of a knee injury. Does it seem like that Sean Payton is kind of figuring things out now? Dennis Allen has kind of gotten him in the right place.
And has Te'o's injury kind of clarified things a little bit? I think that's a fair question as well. Look, Demario Davis yesterday, that was the game we had been waiting for. I know Ducey said he had double-digit sacks last week. Maybe tackles. Tackles last week. Yeah, it'd be something was double-digit sacks. But he was everywhere yesterday. When you signed him this offseason, that was the type of game you envisioned when you signed him. I thought he was great yesterday.
Well, I think for him, even last week, he and A.J. Klein really excelled, and I think it was just really a carryover for him. And it may just be him getting more comfortable because you have to remember, he was a Mike pretty much for the Jets, and then he comes here, he's playing primarily for the Will. So it may just be him getting comfortable not only in that system, but with the defensive players as well. And I don't know how much of it is the coaches don't know what they're doing as far as rotating those guys and putting them in different places. We just had our expectation for some of those guys. Okay, he's the Mike, he's the Sam, he's the Will, and they said, no, we want this best group, these best 3 or 4 out there doing it this way.
I know Demario was pretty elusive when it came to talking about himself yesterday in the locker room, basically going back to the old adage of, we wanted to stop the run, forcing the pass, get pressure, blah, blah, blah. But I would think that he was looking forward to playing back in where he used to play.
Well, I think he was definitely looking forward to playing back in New York, even though it's not the team that you played with. He probably had a lot of friends, that had cheered him on when he was with the Jets. But just to get back to the Big Apple and make sure that he went out the right way is always good.
Look, I think every player wants to play well in a stadium they know very well. And I think Demario Davis, as much as they'll downplay it, I think Demario Davis was the perfect example on Sunday.
All right, coming up, we'll preview a Washington defense that has a knack for turnovers as they come to town, looking to avenge last year's 15-point comeback by the Saints. And be sure to tune in tomorrow night for Fox 8 Overtime, where we'll have more Saints talk as well as look at all of the big stories in South Louisiana sports this week. We'll answer your viewer questions, so keep submitting those using the Final Play app. And be sure to watch Fox 8 Overtime every Tuesday night at 10:35.
Watching the Black and Gold Review Show, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the 2018 Nissan Titan.
Here's Breeze, well protected, gonna throw, and it's bobbled, but then caught by Kamara, and he goes into the end zone. Morstead puts it down. Lutz has it on its way. And an epic comeback by the Saints results in their 8th straight victory.
An odd of a way to win the game inside the Superdome against Washington, 15 points down. This time around, the team is trying to keep it going.
Yeah, for them, they just have to go out and make sure that you're executing the way that you need to. It all starts with taking care of the football, and you want to be able to stop the run. You're going to have a big challenge with Adrian Peterson, though.
I agree, and I believe that game last year, the one we just saw, that was the game where I finally became a believer at 8-2 because they won 8 in a row. but every win leading up to that was kind of like, okay, had kind of an asterisk next to it. That was the one where we all became believers.
Speaking of Adrian Peterson, he's had a bit of a rejuvenated career. Let's talk about that for a second. 2017, 4 games here with the Saints, 7 carries per game, 3 yards per carry. 2017, 6 games with Arizona, still not much better. In 2018, 3 games in Washington, 19 carries per game, 4.2 yards per carry. He was never going to get that kind of opportunity here. He knew that, Saints knew that, but he's in a place now where they needed a running back to be productive.
Well, it's going to be about opportunities for him. The more touches he gets, the better he is as a runner. So for the Saints, you have to stop him early. You can't allow him to get to your second level.
To me, his trade unlocked the Saints offense last year, because at that point, Alvin Kamara really burst on the scene at that point, and everything kind of fell in line. So great opportunity for him now in Washington, but the Saints are better without Adrian Peterson as well, so it should be a fun matchup.
Also, a thing to look forward to this Monday night is what I think that Breeze was kind of planning for. Come back on Monday Night Football, break Peyton Manning's all-time yards passing record, but that's going to be something to watch as well, because his teammates want to do it for him. There may be a lot of people back here watching that. Just your thoughts on, it's finally here.
Well, I think for him, I don't know if he was necessarily planning it. I think the NFL was planning it just because of the moment, and it would have been tough to get 418 yards yesterday, but 200, yeah, he should be able to do that pretty easily. So if we can get it done and over in the first half, and get it out the way, I think they can go and focus on the game.
And let's just pause for a second. This is the most passing yards in NFL history, regardless of the era he plays in. It's productivity, it's longevity, consistency, all those words wrapped up in the one. Drew Brees has been phenomenal. So I'd be shocked if he doesn't get it. So it should be, hopefully they'll win. It comes in a win over Washington.
That will be nice. Don't forget, big week this Thursday night here on Fox 8. Colts and Patriots. Until then, for Deuce and Sean and everyone here at Fox 8, I'm Juan Kincaid. Thank you for watching. Our next newscast is at 4:30 in the morning. Have a great night.
From Fox 8 Sports, this has been the Black and Gold Review Show, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers, home of the best-selling truck 41 years straight.